got your co-host, Steve the Banker.
Evening.
And you got yours truly, Fly Guy Carl. Again, as we start with every show, guys, we ask you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It really helps us if we can grow our subscriptions and bring you more shows. So we ask you to please do that. And if you download our show on any of these streaming services, iTunes, Spotify, so on and so forth, if you do download, please give us a 5-star rating. That helps as much as the subscriptions on YouTube do as well. So we really appreciate your continued support and all the good feedback that we're getting from everybody. Tonight here in episode 20, we're joined by one of our good friends and followers. Adam, say hello.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
So, we were talking to Adam before we started recording, just getting familiar. So Adam, why don't you give us a little background about yourself, how you became a Giants fan and go from there?
So essentially I have an adopted brother that was, he came into our family when I was about 3. And I wasn't really into sports, and ever since then, been a Giants fan. It's kind of funny. I picked the Giants mainly because when I was younger, I was fooled into thinking that the Giants were actual Giants before watching them. So that was kind of an interesting little tidbit. And ever since then, I've been a Giants fan, pretty diehard. So probably I'd like to claim that I'm a bigger fan than he is at this point. So that's pretty much the start of it.
And then, do you do anything special on game days? Do you have any special traditions you follow?
Yes. So it just depends on obviously who is injured or not. I typically will try to wear a certain player's jersey. Typically Daniel Jones. I've had to switch it up a couple times last year, obviously. So typically if it's not a player that I have that's actually playing, I'll typically try to wear an Eli jersey. So it's either one of the two. Other than that, I pretty much head to toe in Giants. I can't have anything else on, and I have to be by myself. I cannot be around friends, family, or anybody else, or things get a little interesting. So
it sounds like me with the Rangers in the playoffs. I'm a little weird. I know, Steve, that hits a nerve, but sorry, buddy.
No, it's okay. And Adam, I occasionally watch with my older daughter, but more often than not, my family, my friends know I got to watch. I get intense, and I look at it as passion. So it means you're a passionate fan. I think it's great.
Yeah. I mean, even the dogs stay away from me. It's pretty bad. So let's kind of get going. I could tell everybody one thing we're not talking about tonight is James Bradbury. See ya. Have fun in Philadelphia, and we'll look forward to facing you twice a year. But Adam, we know you got some questions for us, so why don't you go ahead and ask away, buddy?
So the first one I wanted to go with was what do you guys see, or what does Daniel Jones, I guess, need to do to earn a franchise tag or even an extension? I'm not talking necessarily big money, because it seems like it's possible that, if he didn't perform, as well as expected, but if it was, somewhat good, that he may be willing to take a lower deal. And if the Giants would be interested in that, what you guys think, statistically, he would have to do, or situational wise, what he would have to do to earn that extension?
Steve, why don't you go ahead and start?
Definitely, Carl. So Adam, thanks again for joining. Been looking forward to this. Great questions. Obviously, Daniel Jones is probably the biggest question of the season. That's what everybody's been talking about. For me, the very first thing is health. He's actually got to be healthy. Your question forced me to think back as you were asking at the last 3 seasons since he was a rookie. And I think it's easy to forget he's had a star-crossed 3 years already. His rookie year, I just, for all of you Daniel Jones supporters, here you go. Here's why we all were excited about him that first year under Pat Shurmur. He only played 11 games. He had 3,027 yards, 24 touchdowns, 12 INTs. He rushed 45 times for 270 yards. He was the 5th quarterback in the history of the NFL. Let that sink in again, ladies and gentlemen. He was the 5th quarterback in history to throw for 5 touchdowns in a game as a rookie. That he didn't stop there, though. The game that Carl went to, that Tampa game at the end, he's the only rookie ever. Let me repeat this. He is the only rookie in NFL history to throw for 350 yards or more, 5 touchdowns, and no interceptions in a game. Listen, guys, you don't do that by accident. You don't do that by getting lucky one game and the other team didn't scheme for you. There is talent there, and we know that. But as exciting as that rookie year was, and as fun as it was to think about the potential and the possibilities for the future, we all know what happened the 2 years after. Riddled by injuries, 2020, he was elected team captain. He injured his hamstring during the season. He came back. I mean, tough kid, came back. By the end of the year, we had the best record since 2016. There was a lot we were all excited about first year under Joe Judge, right? He began to fix some of those turnovers. He was an ascending player, but last year, just the wheels fell off. We all know what happened. He didn't finish the season. He only played 12 games. It was brutal. So for those reasons, I put health number one, and then I want to see 4,000 yards or better. I looked at who the top quarterbacks were last year in terms of yards passing. Brady threw for over 5,000. I don't think it's asking so much. Used to be 4,000 yards is like, wow, Eli threw for 4,500. Yep. I don't think that's asking a lot, guys. 4,000 yards. I want to see him average 1 INT per game or less. He's going to throw interceptions. People need to be okay with it because he's going to take chances. And guess what? Almost every quarterback in the league, even the best ones, average at least 1 INT a game. So you know what? I just want him to be parallel with that. I want him to average at least 2 touchdowns a game. We know he can throw for a heck of a lot more than that, but we also know there's going to be games, maybe the running game wins and does the majority of the work. And that's okay too. But what I want to see from Daniel is averaging at least 2 per game. To me, that shows he's back to 2019. He's taking risks. He's taking some chances and hopefully smart ones. I want to see him lastly, I want 2 things. I want to see him show the ability to go through his progressions. I think that is something he's had trouble with since Duke. He was overdrafted. He shouldn't have been drafted 6th. The kid has tremendous physical talents, tremendous arm, maybe the most accurate deep passing arm in the league when he's finally given the chance to do it, but he doesn't go through his progressions. And I want to see him elevate the team. So how many wins does the team have? How many of those wins are because of Daniel? I think we'll know it when we see it. I think, unfortunately, we may not get one of these good quarterbacks in the draft next year because we don't have more than 1 pick in the first round. And quite frankly, if we end up having a good season, maybe even better than we expect, and we start talking about Daniel, but it's a borderline issue, I think they're going to have a tough decision to make because I don't think that there's going to be a great quarterback for us in the draft. We're not going to have a high pick then in that case, and we won't have multiple picks. And I don't know that there's going to be a situation like there was this past offseason with a Russell Wilson who wants to be moved, with a Deshaun Watson that you could trade for. So I don't think it's going to require as much as people might think to re-sign him, but they might use the franchise tag. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, gotcha.
Carl?
So, we've kind of touched on this a few times in previous shows, and I've given my basic generic answer, which I still believe in, that it's going to be a inclusive process to see if he's going to come back, if he's going to get the contract, but if you want to drill down on what my expectations are on Daniel Jones, I did a little homework here. So I was trying to ask myself, all right, what do I think is a reasonable number of touchdowns, let's say? I just kind of took one stat. So I thought to myself 20. But I'm looking back at last year's stats. There's 9 to maybe 12 quarterbacks that threw 20 touchdowns last year. None of them made the playoffs. Interesting enough. All right. And then above that, let's say above 25 touchdowns, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 quarterbacks that threw 25 or more that didn't make the playoffs. But again, you're talking about Justin Herbert, Carson Wentz, Kirk Cousins, and Russell Wilson. Now, first of all, I didn't think Russell Wilson had that many, given the injury he had and the team he had, but that caught my eye. So I guess a reasonable number, I would say, is that 25 touchdown mark. Yep. Steve, I'm in agreement with you. 2 interceptions a game. All right. If I'll say this, give me 2 interceptions a game. All right. And then I'm going to fall back to everything else I said. So give me 25 touchdowns, 2 interceptions a game.
Well, I only want to see 1.
That's fine. I like that better. I thought you said 2. So yeah, 1 a game. I'm much more comfortable with that, Steve.
Yeah.
Yardage, 3,000, 3,300 yards, maybe. And maybe I'm being a little cautious. But given the sample, the sample set that we've seen for the past couple of years, I would rather be cautious than and put up than give you guys crazy numbers and think, okay, well, if he doesn't hit these numbers, then he's not worth another contract. So I like the one interception. I'm much more comfortable with that, Steve. I would say 25 touchdowns, 3,000 to 3,300 yards. But again, it's also going to be the other part of that equation, which was showing command of the offense, showing that, they can move the ball effectively. He makes better decisions. He's not forcing things. And I think a lot of that, and I know people are going to disagree with me, is because he didn't have an offensive line. So he was just trying to get the ball out of his hand and avoid a sack. But I stick to that. I think the offensive line playing in front of him had a lot to do with that. So in as much as those are some of my benchmarks and some of my numbers, but again, there's the other factors that he necessarily cannot control, but maybe with his direction, he can help make better. So that's kind of my feeling on that. What are you thinking, Adam?
Yeah, so I mean I'm kind of right in line with you guys. My only concern obviously is I know, which I'm happy that the fumbles have went down drastically, like perfectly every year. So but I'm worried that problem isn't yet fixed. That's kind of the one thing that I'm like, okay, you still can't be fumbling 7 times a year. On top of the interceptions, like if you're getting an interception a game, you know what I mean? That's going to turn into 2 turnovers a game. You know what I mean? Or almost. So it's just, I don't know. My thought is like with him, I feel like you give him some more leeway than most quarterbacks in these situations, just because there's some things that he has that you can't teach in a quarterback. That's kind of why I feel like he will end up earning that spot. I mean, at some point I feel like that. But like you guys said, I mean, it's got to come down to being like one turnover a game. Cause other than that, I mean, that's just going to be, especially in this offense, they're not going to want to deal with that. I mean, there's just anything more than that. But I mean, the one thing I will tell you is like with the situation with Brian Daboll, I mean, moving forward, I feel pretty happy or feel pretty comfortable because it seems like he's actually putting Daniel Jones in a position to be successful. I felt like last year there's times I was pulling out my hair because I was like, I as a fan could call a better offense in these situations because you could tell that the things that he was calling was ridiculous at times. So
I did pull out my hair.
Yeah. It got pretty frustrating until Jason Garrett. My manager my manager allowed me an extra break time just to celebrate when Jason Garrett got fired. So that was
nice.
Pretty good time. And he was a Browns fan, so that was pretty generous of him. So
So give us another question, Adam.
So the next one I want to look at is other than Daniel Jones and the offensive line, obviously, like which unit do you guys see that the Giants need to improve on the most to make you feel like we're at least moving in the right direction, and that we have the right management around and GM, coach, all that stuff to make you feel comfortable moving forward?
Instead of just saying the defense, I kind of took a different approach. So I went one on offense and one on defense. I want to see the receivers step up. I want to see Kenny Golladay earn that contract. I want to see the Kenny Golladay that everybody tells us was, such a great receiver, and that's why he got so much money. Not the Kenny Golladay that we all saw last year who looked disinterested. Really didn't fight for any balls. If it wasn't just thrown directly to him, he didn't go up and fight for it. I want to see him and Kadarius Toney, suck it up a little bit and play through some injury. And maybe part of that was also disinterest because the team was just so bad. And they were probably, I don't know for sure, but maybe the thinking was, well, hey, I got to protect myself here. This team stinks. And you know what? There's going to be another contract. I got to protect myself. I could be wrong, but would anybody here be surprised if that wasn't the case or if that was the case? So I want to see the receiver step up. and I want to see the defensive front step up. Now, I hate to just pick out one and say, all right, well, what about our linebackers? What about a secondary? But I want to see this defensive front step up. I want to see Thibodeau in the backfield. I want to see pressure on the quarterback. Look, guys, not for nothing, but our secondary can be great. If we're not putting pressure on the quarterback, he's going to pick us apart. So I don't, I want to see when it's third. I don't want to see 3rd and 1 all the time. I want to see 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7. And then I want to have confidence that, all right, well, they're going to run a draw and pick up the first down. I don't want to see that. I want to see, you know what? That he's got to throw because he can't run on us. So that's where I think I want to see the 2 biggest improvements is the wide receivers and the defensive line. Adam?
Yeah, so I mean, I was pretty much right there with you as well. I wanted the receivers, and I figured one of you guys would say the defensive line. So I actually wanted to do something a little bit different, was the cornerbacks, since that's obviously a little bit of a drop off. I'm kind of worried about that. And since I felt like we didn't really go high at all in the draft, I thought we were going to go a little bit higher than what we did. And it seemed like a lot of people had us pegged going a little bit higher, especially with the whole James Bradbury, even though he wasn't cut at the time and we all knew what was going to happen. So that's where I kind of feel worried about, because, I mean, let's be real. There are some deadly receivers now in our division. So, I mean, we need people to take care of them. But luckily we have Xavier McKinney at least kind of helping in the back end, which luckily we have that man. So other than that, I mean, that would be the main thing with the receivers. I'm literally pretty much right there with you with what you said. So
Steve?
For me, it was easy. The pressure unit of the defense, I'll just call it. Edge rushers, outside linebackers, wherever it's. I know with wing, it's going to come from other places too. Everybody knows. But that front 7, that pressure that they apply, we're tied for 22nd in the league in sacks. We're really like 24th, but when you're tied, we didn't have a single player last year with double digits. Let me repeat that. We did not have a single player with double digits. Our leader was a rookie, Aziz. He had 8. And I think most people don't realize he had 8 because it was awesome that he was a rookie and he did well. And he'll be hopefully the Robin to our new Batman. But, it wasn't like, oh my God, this rookie blew it up on the scene. I mean, his sacks often came in bunches and, he might've gone a game or 2 games without even a sack. So he had 8. Leonard Williams had 6.5, huge drop off from the year before. And I think that a lot of that is because he didn't have anybody else in the line applying pressure. He was getting constantly doubled and tripled. And a lot, Zoe Carter, who's not been around, the guy had no sacks most of the year. And then he gets a bunch towards the end of the season. He ended up with 5. Literally, nobody else had anything close to that. Dexter Lawrence, I think, had 2.5. Austin Johnson had 3.5. He's not even here anymore. And then a bunch of guys had 1 sack. I'll just use the word. I don't think it's overly dramatic. That's disgusting. I'll say it again. That's disgusting. Yeah. So that's what I want to see. I want to see a huge improvement there.
So, Steve, Ojulari, didn't he have most of his sacks early, if I recall properly?
He hit a little bit of a rookie wall.
Right. That's what I'm alluding to.
He had 4 or 5, but then he finished with 3 more sacks in the back half of the season. So he added over 10 pounds of muscle this season. He talked about that during the OTAs when they interviewed him. Yeah. They kept out. He's not a great interview. They kept asking why, and he had these rehearsed, canned, boring lines that he kept. But that was the one thing that interested me during his interview with the press last week, was when they asked him about why. And do you think it's going to affect your speed? He's like, I just wanted to. And they said, well, did the team tell you? He's like, no, I'm excited about that because I think he's already a stud against the run. I think it's going to really help him. And if he doesn't lose his bend, his flex, and his ability to rush the passer, my hope is that it's going to address exactly what you just said, that rookie wall that he hit. This guy's going to he's not going to be affected as much by those huge offensive tackles and guards he's going up against. So.
And who's one player that we kind of really don't talk too much about during the offseason? We haven't really is Roche.
Yeah, the guy, the league voted, it was on PFS, I think the league voted him as they the hidden gem this offseason, the
Yeah.
guy that might come out of nowhere. Everybody was talking about that on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah, Pittsburgh really, if I remember correctly, Pittsburgh really wanted to keep him.
Yeah, they goofed. They
Yeah.
didn't think Gettleman would have the balls to take him off the practice squad, because there's usually that, we talked about that recently. There's usually that, like, a little bit of that mutual respect amongst
Right.
teams,
Right.
especially for our two teams, Pittsburgh and the Giants, that actually have family connections, right? We all know about the Maras and the
Sure.
anyway, and the Rooneys. So anyway, yeah, that was fascinating.
I have a quick question for you, just kind of building off that a little bit. So I don't have it written down exactly all the names, but does it kind of worry you guys at all, or just a little bit, that they're bringing in all these guys that were previously with Wink? Just, kind of seems like, they were just brought in automatically, just because they were part of his system. I get that you bring guys in that'll shape the culture the way that you want it to be shaped, but does that worry you at all? I'm just kind of curious, just because you kind of see this sometimes when.
I'll address that real quick. When I look back at when Betcher was here, the last defensive coordinator that did that, because Graham didn't do that. He didn't.
That's what I was kind of.
If you look back at the guys that Betcher brought in, they were key personnel. Those were key people up front at various levels of the defense that were going to be integral. I mean, some of those were starters. Wink, all right, we have the big defensive tackle that may end up starting. He may not, that he got. And he's not just a Ravens guy. He played for the Raiders. He played for a couple teams. Most of the guys, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, Carl, most of the guys that they're bringing in are just bodies. Like, we need, especially in the secondary, we need corners. And you know what, Adam, I understand the concern, but if these are corners that understand his defense, and I think they're mostly, it's a numbers game. They're taking flyers on 3 or 4 guys, especially after they cut Bradbury. And it's like, let's see who plays. Let's see who plays. And the guys that don't play, they're going to cut them.
Yeah.
Am I wrong about that, or no?
No, I think you're right, Steve. I mean, look, it's the old saying: you throw, what against the wall enough times, sometimes it's going to stick. So I understand they're trying to get a little bit of a veteran presence in the secondary, so I relate that question, Adam, to the same reason why they brought in Davis Webb at the quarterback position. If these guys know the system, look, they're going to, in my opinion, most of them are camp bodies. If 1 or 2 stick, or what they make it, or they stay in the practice squad, great. I think a lot of it is to help expedite the transition to these new systems for these players that are new to the system. So I think if they come in and they're going to just explain the system and help these guys learn the system, get them up to speed quicker, I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it at all. So what about you? I mean, you asked the question, does it concern you?
So, not really. I kind of was okay with it, just because kind of like you were saying, like, it seemed like, I mean, there weren't big name people. It wasn't like we were spending everything to get them. I just kind of seen in the past, like, you've seen kind of coaches do that kind of a thing and try to repeat something, and it doesn't tend to work out. So that's kind of the only reason why I like to ask that. But I was kind of with you a little bit more, just like you guys, about, like, they are just bodies, and it is true that they're not spending as much money, but I was just kind of worried about, like, hey, are they just trying to repeat something or replicate something? And, obviously this is something completely different. So, I mean, they're dealing with a completely different problem, I should say. I don't want to say problem, but you know what I mean? Totally different situation. So.
No, it's a good question. It's a valid question. What else do you have for us, Adam?
The other question I had was, do you think Saquon Barkley is going to be as much of a focal point of the offense as he once was, or as they were once trying to make him? If you think that's the case, I mean, how do you think they'll use him more in the pass game or in the run game? And if not, who do you think is going to be the most focal point of the offense? Whether it be Kadarius Toney, Galladay, Jones, whoever. So
good, Steve.
So I don't think he's going to be the focal point of the offense, and I love it. Now, that's not to say he's not going to have a phenomenal year if he stays healthy. That's not to say he can't get 1,600 yards and rushing and 900 yards receiving and 12 touchdowns. It doesn't mean that he's still not going to potentially have a great year. But I think one of the biggest problems of the last couple of years was every team knew it was all about Saquon. They weren't scared of our throwing our passing attack. And they just crowded the box, and Saquon had nowhere to go. Our offensive line was terrible, and the rest is history. So I'm concerned about his injury history. Obviously, every player gets injured at some point, but I don't know how much of the load they just want to give him every single game. And I think that's why they brought in some really nice players to back him up. I'm excited about them spreading the offense. It pressures the defense. And by spreading the offense, the whole goal, right? We've talked about this, Carl and I, with some of our previous guests, is it's about plays being easier it's putting the offensive players in position to have easier plays. So if you see what they've been talking about in the OTAs, some of what's been reported is that they're seeing Saquon being put in, out in the flat, spread out, giving him opportunities to catch the ball in motion on the run. We hadn't seen that at all the last 2 years. So I think and my final thoughts on this is I don't want them to just focus on Saquon. And the reason is a couple obvious ones. I think they need to find out who can play. Well, if you're just feeding Saquon the ball constantly, we've talked about this, how we have so many other weapons. Well, they need to see who else can play. Saquon is on his final year. Are they going to re-sign him? Maybe they don't, or they don't want to, but don't we need to know what else we have? Well, you got to play these guys. And the offense should be unpredictable. Going back to what I started with, force the defense to make decisions in coverage pre and post snap. You don't do that by just focusing on the majority of your offense on one guy. Carl talked about Galladay. We talked about Kadarius Toney, but Wan'Dale Robinson, who we drafted. We have Shepard if he can stay healthy. Darius Slayton, who knows if he'll be on the team, if he'll make it out of camp. I still have thoughts that he might get cut at some point. We have a lot of players. Breida, the backup running back. So I think it actually serves Saquon well, and it serves the rest of the team well to not just make him the focal point. And I think he can still have a phenomenal year.
Don't they have an undrafted free agent out of Florida State that's a running back?
Yep.
I heard he's just lighting it up right now. I don't recall his name.
He killed Notre Dame last year.
Yeah.
He transferred originally to FSU from another program. Supposedly he's killing it.
Yeah, exactly. So to answer your question directly, Adam, no, I don't believe that Saquon is going to be the focal point of the offense. And I agree with Steve. I don't think he should be, especially, we were just talking about, well, is Daniel Jones going to get a contract? Well, how are you going to gauge if he's worth a contract if he's handing off the ball, 2 or 3 downs, per series to Saquon Barkley? And I actually think by not making Saquon the focus of the offense helps them both.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off Saquon, and it's going to give Daniel Jones more of a chance to showcase what he can do. If he's got command of this offense, if he can be the guy. The other guy that I also think is going to be much more involved and play a bigger role, if he can stay healthy, is Kadarius Toney. I don't think the last coaching staff knew how to utilize him, whether it's because they didn't see him on the field enough, which I don't believe is the truth. I just don't think that they had the offensive game plan to go ahead and fully utilize him, whether they run him on jet sweeps, reverses. You don't just have to always have him, going down the yard, the field, 15, 20 yards to catch a pass. He's that dynamic. So I think, given what I've seen out of Daboll's offenses, I think you're going to see much more of his involvement and him playing a bigger role more than just a slot receiver, let's say. So, I think there's going to be a mix there. But again, I think by including all these guys and giving these guys more roles, I'm very hopeful that they're all going to take a step forward. They're all going to have better seasons. Our offense is going to be better, and we are going to be better.
Yeah.
Adam?
That's kind of where I was. That's kind of what my thought process was. I didn't want him to feel like I just didn't want him to feel like he was like pressured. And that's what you were saying. I mean, it would definitely help out if they spread it around. Kadarius Toney was the next biggest question. I mean, other than it's hard not to say Kenny Golladay with having no touchdowns last year and paying all that money, but I think a lot of the fans are more excited about Kadarius Toney because of the upside potential with him. And then obviously, if he can end up working out with Wandale and we still got Shep. I mean, at the end of the day, if Kenny Golladay doesn't work out, I mean, that's an option where they can move him at the end of the season. Because I don't know exactly how it's structured, but wouldn't they be in a much better position to move him at the end of the season? Because it would have been pointless to move him, Kenny Golladay. If they were to do anything with him, wouldn't it be better to do it next season? I mean, they're obviously not going to do it this season or this past off season, but wouldn't it make more sense to do it next year based off of like what he's already earned guaranteed wise? Or
to that point, look, I think Joe Shane has proven himself that he's going to make moves that he feels benefits his team.
Yeah.
For some reason, if this offense is stuck in neutral by the trade deadline, or you could just see that it's not going to be our year, we're not going to be competitive, and somebody comes calling looking for a receiver. Look, I know there's a lot involved in trying to trade Golladay, but I think Shane would engage it to the fact he would at least consider it. I would not be surprised. So, and Wandale Robinson is actually a little bit of an X factor here because I think he actually takes a little bit of pressure off Kadarius Toney. So Kadarius Toney, he can beat Kadarius Toney, but you think about it for a minute. You've got Saquon Barkley, you've got Wandale Robinson, Kadarius Toney, you got Kenny Golladay. Well, who is the defense gonna focus on? They can't key any one of those guys. All right, we've got a tight end that can catch the ball too. So, you could just see I love what they're doing. They're keeping the defenses off balance. So they're setting these guys up to be successful. They just got to go out and prove they could do it. But it's a very interesting dynamic that I think Shane has created here this offseason, in his first offseason and during a rebuild to boot. But it's really, and Steve, I think you can agree with this. It's really hard to talk about this, right? And we can all visualize it. But then, let's look at the schedule here and kind of keep it into perspective too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to go, 12-5. Not going to happen.
I mean, I just feel like it's just, I've been a fan. I'm only 23 and I've had 2 Super Bowls in my lifetime, and most fans can't say they've had any and they're 60 years old. And so it's like, I feel like I've been a little spoiled, but it's at this point, it's like, it's just, 5 years. I mean, seeing the comparison to the Jets just makes you sick. So it's like, I don't want to keep getting my hopes up. You know what I mean? I don't want to get too high on it because I've gotten too high on it the past couple of years. So that's why I try to be hesitant, but it seems like I don't bite my tongue when I say this, but it seems like, they're moving in the right direction. They at least got the right people that will make the tough decisions. At least that's what makes it, makes me feel better.
Look, guys, I've said this before. I've been saying this for years and years before Carl and I ever knew each other. I've always told all my friends, it always starts with the offensive line. And any of my friends or acquaintances I've known over the years who are like, no, you need a great quarterback. You need this. I'm like, look, there was a great quarterback that plays for Kansas City a couple of years ago that lost his 2 starting offensive tackles. And what did he do? Oh, I know. He lost. Guess what? Because he didn't have offensive tackles and he's running around like a numbnut and he lost. Because guess what? Offensive line matters. He's had that beautiful luxury of protection there. And he didn't have all Pro Bowlers, but he had a pretty solid offensive line. He had some great offensive linemen at times. And, offensive line matters. And this season, to me, the most important thing will be, what does our offensive line do? Our defense is going to go through growing pains. It's going to have issues in the secondary, whatever. Anything that they want to do as a coaching staff, any growth we see from Daniel Jones, is any rebound from Saquon. We could talk all we want about all these other things. None of it matters if the offensive line doesn't gel. And the sooner it gels, the sooner they're going to get confidence, the sooner our team is going to have some options when they scheme offensively, the sooner they'll be able to run out the clock and keep our defense fresh and keep the other high octane offense off the field. it all goes back to offensive line. And that offensive line has been an absolute disaster for a long time. So let's hope this is, let's hope it's on its way to being fixed, you know?
And Steve, think about it. If your offensive line is not doing its job, you can't use that entire playbook. It limits how creative you can be. And I'm sure that's been part of the problem as well, is that I don't think there was any confidence from the coaching staff that they could run some of the plays in the playbook because the offensive line couldn't do it. Defenses definitely didn't fear us. So, the offensive line is the motor that makes the whole bus go here. So
it's the least sexy part of a team.
Yeah.
Next to maybe punting and kicking, right? But man, it's the foundation of the house.
Yep.
It's the foundation of the house. And the
Well,
house
there's-
is, you know.
Well, I'd say there's one thing actually, Steve, that you I think it was you that mentioned it last episode you had. You were talking about how like it's like when you're like the young kids, they're all focused on like the quarterback and everything else, and that's kind of like me. Like it's probably like it took me probably until I was 19 years old to realize that how serious an offensive line was. Even though I played football my whole life, and it took that long for and to see how bad the team has gotten to realize how important the offensive line is. Like you could have the Hall of Fame, everything else, but if you don't have an O-line to give time, I mean, there's nothing that's going to happen.
Listen, any of us that watched Eli the back half of his career, I can't express my frustration knowing the arm he still had. I mean, and knowing the weapons he still had, and what we should have done as a team. And because that offensive line was so neglected and so poorly put together after those 2 Super Bowls, and the lack of reinvestment in that offensive line with proper draft picks and proper players.
Right.
Yeah, everybody's, especially Adam, no offense to the younger generation. It's like, all these offensive statistics and Madden and PlayStation and my wide receivers. Yeah, but who cares? Like, I just want to win a Super Bowl, and no team's ever won a Super Bowl without a really, really good top 10 offensive line. Like, you need a good, solid offensive line. So
I feel like the Bengals proved that they did the best last year after you saw how bad Joe Burrow fell apart in the Super Bowl. I mean,
there's a reason Russell Wilson has never again won a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
they've had one of the worst offensive lines almost every year since he won the Super Bowl.
Well, look at Kansas City. Right, they won the Super Bowl. They beat San Francisco because they protected Mahomes. They go back the following year, and he just got abused by Tampa because he had no offensive line. So what do they do that offseason? They actually rebuilt their offensive line on the fly.
In 1 year.
Exactly
which
right.
shows that you can do it.
Right, and they got back to the playoffs, and the reason why they got eliminated was not because of the offensive line, it was because of the defense. So, there's proof in the pudding here. Everybody can sit here and say, you guys know what you're talking about. I go, when I hear that, I say, all right, well, name me a quarterback in the NFL currently that could have been on the roster last year and gotten us to the playoffs. And no one can answer that question because there isn't anybody.
You know what, Adam? You got me freaking fired up, man. Bring another question. Come on.
All right. Okay.
Now you got me fired up, baby. Talking offensive line.
All right. I would say I'm bouncing back.
Bring it on.
All right. Let me see. So for my
aren't you fired up, Carl? I'm fired up.
This one, I don't know. A lot of people, I don't know how much people follow him as much, but what would you see or want to see from like Xavier McKinney to see like him take that next step? Because he seems like he can be like that next, commanding figure on our defense or like one of them. I mean, he just the way he was one of the very, very few bright spots about watching last season, like seeing that Philly game, getting those picks. I mean, it was for a very slight time last year that I was very happy. So it's just like, I'm kind of interested to see where he can go. Just like with like carrying the defense and finally having some kind of stability in the locker room and see where that takes him.
Go ahead there, Fireman Steve.
I knew I was going to get in trouble for that, baby. Look, he's going to have a lot of pressure on him this season, more even than in the past. And I think the assumption is, well, they're not going to be playing that really complex zone scheme that Patrick Graham had that was very successful at times. Bend, don't break. A lot of responsibility on those defensive backs to understand the zone concepts, series to series, play to play, switching in and out of different zones. And when different offensive players come into your zone, coverage responsibilities, handing guys off, that was complicated. But I'll tell you what, in a totally different way, he's going to have a ton on his plate. He's going to be playing, other than Adoree, if hopefully, knock on wood, he can stay healthy. He's going to have some young guys out there with him. Does Flott play? Does Robinson stay in the slot? Does Robinson go to the boundary and then he's no longer a slot corner for us because of the numbers game? And then Darnay and Flott are battling it to play nickel. And like, who are the guys? And yeah, you just talked before about guys that who have history with Wink, that they're signing warm bodies to get some experience in there. But either way, I think he's going to have a lot of responsibilities on his plate, playing free safety back there. But what comes with that, I think, is going to be tremendous opportunity to make plays. Yeah. He's already a ball hawk. Well, I think, and we talked about this in the last episode, my theory, the last 2 episodes, I said, listen, I think the top 10 to 15 QBs in the league are going to tear us apart potentially, especially that second and third level of our defense. And so they're going to take shots against our D. He's going to have opportunities to make interceptions. So what do I want to see? I want to see him make a Pro Bowl, man. I think he's got the potential for it. He's got the experience now. That first season was a little bit of a wash with his injuries, but he played at the end. And then last year was huge. I think he's the guy that can have a ton of interceptions, make a ton of plays, and be a Pro Bowl type player. And the final thought is, all the interviews seem to make it sound like he's going to be almost like a captain of the defense. He's going to be one of the guys calling plays, at least in the secondary. So they're looking to him as a leader. I love it. I love they're putting all this weight on his shoulders. I think he can handle it. He came from Alabama, national champion. I want to see him make a Pro Bowl, man.
Yeah.
I see him being that Julius Peppers, Logan Ryan kind of guy. I think he's going to be more vocal. Steve, I agree with you. I think he's going to be the quarterback of the secondary. You know what I think is also going to help him is Julian Love. I think they're around the same age, around the same level of experience, give or take. All right. Julian Love has been very quiet, but steady. And I think that is going to help free up Xavier McKinney to do more. And I think Wink is going to take advantage of that. So, I'm not going to put a number on interceptions. I think you may see him blitzing a little bit as well. I'm a little bit more optimistic about our secondary than a lot of other people that I've seen. I think Flott's going to be a player. He's going to contribute. And also, right, they signed, didn't they draft somebody out of Baylor, Steve, I believe, correct? A safety or?
The safety, yeah.
So, all right. So I think you can see that they're creating a situation where they can move McKinney around and I don't want to say disguise him, but teams aren't going to be able to look at him and say, all right, he's doing this, so we can run this. So I think it's going to help him. I expect a good year out of him, but I think he's going to be more of a vocal leader this year.
See, I was hoping like he would end up turning into even a better Landon Collins. I mean, just the way that he seems like he's a better ball hawk. I mean, way better than Landon was. I mean, Landon was amazing in the box, but I mean, I feel like
couldn't cover.
And
yeah, they play two different positions.
What?
They play two totally different positions. Landon Collins was more like Peppers, where they played strong safety.
Right.
Xavier's a true free safety.
Free safety, right.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You were saying like you wanted to see him blitz more. That's what I was hoping. Like I would hope to see him like with more tackles and see him like actually get more inside at some points. I feel like with Wink, he'll take those risks with him every once in a while, just with his athleticism and how well he's been playing.
but he can cover too, which is huge.
Yeah, and we haven't had that. So I
Right.
mean, that's why that between him and Landon. I mean, I was a big Landon fan, but he couldn't get over the covering, especially for what he wanted paid. It was just ridiculous.
The last great free safety weight you had was Kenny out of Miami. Oh my
Phillips.
gosh, thank you, Kenny Phillips. Yeah, who was turning into a phenomenal player before that injury he had. Played for a Super Bowl team for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, there's Antrell Roll. I mean, we've had some really good ones at times, so definitely need to replace that for sure.
Yeah, I guess I'm talking like homegrown,
Oh yeah. Oh no, I know what you mean. Yeah, I got you.
So we could do one of two things here. We've got a couple minutes here, Adam. We can do another question, or do you want to go through the schedule? It's
We can go through the
for
schedule.
show, so whatever you're more comfortable doing.
Yeah, we can go through the schedule. That's fine.
All right. So Steve and I have our picks, but I'll read the games and then just let me know what you think. Okay. Just say win or loss. And if you want to give a quick synopsis, feel free.
Yeah.
Week 1 at Tennessee.
I'd have to say a loss.
All right. Home opener week 2 against Carolina.
I'd have to say win.
Week 3 home Monday night against Dallas.
I got to go win here because I feel like this is going to be a big game for Daniel Jones, and I got to feel like he's gonna do great things. So
I love it.
Steve, I got to tell you, some of our followers here have some balls, huh? They're
Everybody so far
jumping on it. Yeah, I like it.
Adam, this is becoming a tradition now. I'm actually loving it. So part of me was looking forward to your other questions, but because you got me really pumped up, but part of me is looking forward to doing this.
Yeah.
And I see a pattern here. Everybody's got the little cojones, and they're saying,
Right.
we're gonna win that first game against Dallas. I love it.
Week 4 home versus Chicago.
I'd have to say win. I just, with where Chicago's at, I feel like they're starting to get to where we're getting at where we were at, and I'm kind of worried for them. So that's why I kind of worried about them right now.
We can come through the first 4 games 3-1. Oof.
I was just gonna say, man, can you imagine 3-1?
Wow.
It's a lot. I know it's been a while, but hey, listen,
Daniel,
it's got to start somewhere.
I'll tell you what, Adam, your boy will be looking at a second contract at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he may get it right after that week too. So week 5 in London versus Green Bay.
Loss.
All right.
Welcome.
Hasn't totally lost its marbles.
No, not Aaron Rodgers, man.
I don't know. Let me just say this. Everybody's been saying a loss. I say a loss. Carl say a loss. I'll tell you one thing. I don't know who the hell he's going to be throwing it to this year.
Yes, and I think people don't realize how much London makes a difference. I had a friend that played for the Chargers and had to play in London, and he said it is by far he's like, it's not even playing the same game. Just the feeling of your body when you're like getting used to all that's just insane. So, but yeah, loss for the Packers. What's next? What's the next?
Yeah,
one?
but you know what, Steve? To your point about who's he going to be thrown to, he's got 2 great running backs.
Yeah.
Let's be real. It is Aaron Rodgers. You got to give props. The man can do a lot with nothing.
I mean, not for nothing, but Aaron Jones out of that backfield, and
they got that rookie wide receiver. He may quickly turn him into something. You never know.
And then you follow up with Corey Dillon busting through the line of scrimmage. Oof, they're still loaded. All right, week 6 home for Baltimore.
See a loss there. I feel like that defense is going to be coming, and I know John Harbaugh is not going to want to lose against Wink, so I can see that being a pretty competitive game. But not
all right, Steve, I know this is your favorite game on the schedule. Week 7 at Jacksonville.
I got to go. I have to go with W there. I have to.
Steve, I'm leaving it out there, Steve.
I want us to win.
I know you do.
It's a trap game. It's definitely not a good game. I mean, I feel like that could definitely turn into a trap game. So of the sort.
I'm worried, Adam. I'm worried about Trevor Lawrence. I think it's only his second year. Not people like to say, oh, third year. I think he's ascending far quicker than people realize.
Yeah.
Like the jump that Justin Herbert took, I think he's going to take that jump.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And people are saying Travis Etienne is he looks phenomenal right now.
Yeah.
All right. Week 8 at Seattle. Excuse me.
So I played around with this one. It's kind of funny that I play around with this one out of all the ones, but I want to stick with win on this one, but I'm hesitant to say that just because of the atmosphere of Seattle, and you don't know what Seattle's going to be yet. Obviously, they're not looking like it's gonna go well, but I mean, you really never know. They still do have targets on their team, and they still have weapons. I just in that atmosphere, it's hard to say, but I'd still have to go with the win there.
All right.
You're going with a W?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
So week 9 is a bye. Coming off the bye, week 10 home versus Houston.
Man, it's hard with Davis Mills. I kind of.
There's no money on it, brother.
Yeah, no, I know. I'd have to say loss. I'd have to say loss on this one. I hate to say that because it's the Texans, but coming off of a bye week, I don't know.
Wow. Okay.
I know we're typically good off the bye, but I'm worried. I'm worried about Davis Mills just a little bit. I know that sounds crazy to say, but
Yeah, I like him as a quarterback too.
yeah, I'm not. I don't think. I think people are not giving him enough props.
Killing him short. Exactly right. All right, week 11. Home versus Detroit.
Win.
I'm glad we did this, Steve. Week 12, Thanksgiving Day in Dallas. Come on, big guy. Where's those cojones now, huh?
Yeah. I gotta go with my gut.
Wow.
Yeah.
I gotta go with my gut. No, I think we're gonna win that game.
Woo!
I think we're gonna sweep Dallas for the first time in a long time. I have a very good inclination on that. Like I don't like where Dallas is heading with Zeke's situation, getting rid of Amari. I'm not a fan of what's going on over there.
Look, if nothing else, you've just earned my respect because you know what, you stayed true to your big bull self. So I give you credit.
And no more Randy Gregory. They lost their second best pass rusher.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So week 13, home versus Washington.
So I think we're gonna split with Washington, but I think that we will end up losing at home. I have a feeling.
Interesting. Week 14. Oh boy. Week 14 at Philadelphia.
I love the oh boy. He doesn't even it's like Voldemort. He doesn't even want to say the name.
I'm gonna go win in Philly.
If they win in Philly, they'll need a police escort on the way out there.
Yeah.
And I'll need oxygen. Week 15 at Washington.
What did I have as loss splitting? Which one did I say for the first one? Sorry,
You had a win for the first one.
Yeah, loss for the second. Yep.
Week 16, Christmas Eve at Minnesota.
I think that's a loss.
Week 17, New Year's Day, home against Indianapolis.
Oh, this one's hard with Matt Ryan. I'd have to say loss. I think Indianapolis is going to be a bit of a dark horse team this year with Matt Ryan. I think and Julio quite hasn't landed anywhere. I can really see him possibly landing in Indianapolis. So if that happens, I feel like they would be a little bit of a dark horse.
I think they've actually started having some discussions together.
Yes, I actually just saw Matt Ryan at a convention like a week ago in Ohio over here. So kind of interesting.
Ask him.
No, I didn't have the balls to ask him anything along those lines, but I came very close to asking him to sign the helmet with 28-3, but that would not have been a 28. What was it? 28 to 3 that they were up at halftime. So, but I couldn't do it.
That wouldn't have gotten you season tickets. I'll tell you that.
Nope, not too much. That would not be good.
And then finally, week 18 at Philadelphia.
I gotta say a loss. As much as I hate to say that at the end of the season, I I feel like if the division's closer and more's on the line, I could see a win, but it depends on too many factors for me.
So Carl, my tally is 8 wins.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So far, it's funny, Steve. So far, we said early on that we feel that the sweet spot is 6 to 8 wins, and actually everybody's kind of landing right within there, right?
Yeah. In fact, it's even tighter, 7 to 8.
Yeah. So,
did one person say 9 wins? I'm trying to remember.
what did Sean say last week? Did he say 9? I don't have the paper where I wrote it down.
Yeah, me neither.
I think he was on the higher side.
Roll the tape.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and check.
Yeah.
But Adam, great job. That was fun. We're having fun doing this schedule review every week with our guests. So you did a really good job with that. Anything else you wanna go over quickly?
No, I think that about touches on everything. I mean, I can say that I feel like we're all kind of in agreement that we feel like we're all moving in the right direction. So I just kind of wanted to kind of see everybody's thoughts on like the, specifics of it. So I feel like we did all that.
If you had to put a time frame on it, Adam, when do you see us competing for a playoff berth?
I don't want to say it's out of the realm of possibility. I mean, given the division, given there being an extra playoff spot, if we're all landing in around that 8-win situation, I mean, it's not out of the question. It's not crazy to say out of the question this year. I would say truthfully, like as a competitive team and being excited going to the playoffs, I'd say at least a year. We'd at least have to see stability wise, like is Daniel staying? What are we doing with Saquon? Like I feel like there's too many question marks to answer that right now. And I feel like Joe Shane has made that very clear to us to not have our expectations too out of this world, which I respect because, that kind of wasn't the case previously. So he seems like he's very realistic, but I would say at least a year till we're actually really competitive and till it really means something to me, I guess.
2023?
Yeah.
I think that's fair. Steve?
Yeah, I think there's always the possibility this year if they exceed our expectations. We're probably still in the worst division in football, right? Top to bottom. So you never know. That's why they play the games. Every year we think the top 10 or 15 teams in the NFL are going to be a certain way. And there's always teams that surprise us on the upside and the downside. So, and health, right? I mean, we have the worst turf in the NFL. So if we can somehow make it through a season with all the talent that we have and the players, that offensive line, why not win the division? And okay, we'd get bounced in the first round probably, right? But how much fun would that be to be ahead of schedule? So I have this feeling that it may work out with Daniel, but I could see, like, for those of us that are old enough to remember Kerry Collins and how much we loved him and that cannon of an arm, but another quarterback that was 6'5", right? Big guy, strapping, didn't move like Daniel, but I have this funny feeling like things may work out with him, but in 2 years, they may look to do an upgrade because he's not going to be the type of guy that takes us to the promised land. And the beautiful thing about being the Giants and Giants fans is we're not, Adam, you mentioned this in the beginning, we're not the Jets, we're not some of these other teams. I mean, we expect a Super Bowl here.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You know what my concern is here's why I don't want to see them really kill it this year. Like, I don't want to see 10 wins. And I know that sounds terrible, but I don't think that this roster is complete yet. So, their schedule is favorable this year where, hey, a couple of these games break in a different direction. You know what? We may be talking big wins. But my concern is I don't think it's complete enough yet where we could follow that up again in another year or so.
Let me introduce you to Fly Guy from last week, who will disagree with you. And I love Fly Guy from last week, and I'll tell you why. Fly Guy last week said something that was eye-opening to me and to our guest, and we hadn't thought about it. And Fly Guy last week said, you know what's going to happen they're going to turn this thing around, and this is going to be a team that free agents are going to want to come to.
Yes.
So
Yes.
10 wins, build a foundation. We're nowhere near ready to open the present yet. I agree with you. But then maybe some of those missing pieces are free agents. And by the way, remember what I said a few episodes ago, we're slated right now. Granted, we haven't re-signed Saquon. There's a lot of money that is probably going to have to be spent if we do keep Daniel. But I think we're projected by Spotrac to have like the third most salary cap going into next season at this point, based upon contracts that are going to come off and all that. So Fly Guy from last week may have said, hey, this is going to be a place people are going to want to come to. 10 wins, great. Let's build on that.
Yeah.
I
love what you said.
You're right. I did say it. I will stand by it, but
it blew my mind. I was like, wow.
I should have put a time frame on it. I see that,
I'm just saying
1 or 2 years of consistent winning, then I'll believe it.
One thing that I do worry, is I don't want people to get like unrealistic expectations. If we go and win 10 games, or if we end up getting close to the end of the season, where I see what you mean in getting those expectations, but I also do think that there needs to be like let me ask you this. I'm kind of interested to hear you guys answer. What is the bare minimum you guys would accept?
Wins?
Yeah.
Ooh, man.
I'd say 7. I mean, I feel like that's the lowest I feel, because it's just been so bad for so long. I mean, I feel like that. I mean, 6 is like, depending on the situation. I mean, even that's still.
You remember what I said when you asked your very first question about Daniel early in tonight's show? I went through a whole bunch of, I kind of hit the reset button. I said, hey, ladies and gentlemen, let's remember what Daniel was his first year. I think we're scarred by the last 2, but let's remember the potential he had. He finished that first year in 2019 with 6 wins, and our head coach still got fired. So what does that say? And our offensive line, in theory, should be a heck of a lot better than that year's team was. So,
yeah. And
our defense hopefully is going to at least cause a lot more turnovers and be a lot more fun to watch. I mean, it may be even more loosey-goosey in the secondary. Who knows? But so, man, I'd like to think at least 7 wins, right?
Yeah, I'd have to say so. I mean, even there's some, I don't want to say easy, because no game's ever easy. It's the NFL, but there's some games up there that are, it's hard to not just say W, but you know what I mean? It's hard to not say that, but you never know. There's always games every year that one that you expect is going to go your way doesn't go your way, and vice versa. It happens.
What about you, Carl? Minimum number of wins. I think you've said 6 before, or are you pushing that up?
Yeah. You know what? Look, I'm going to stay consistent, but again, I said 6 when you asked the question to myself, but again, 6, but we're not getting blown out. We're in every game. We're competitive, and maybe it's just because we just don't have the talent. So, but you could see these guys are balling. These guys are fighting and they're playing, and you could see it coming together. We're losing games by 3, 4 points, 6 points. We're in every game.
Yeah.
I would be happy with that, because there were times last year it looked like we never even got off the bus.
Yeah.
So, Steve, I'm going to stick to my word. Now you got me all fired up. I'm going to stick to what I said. 6 wins.
Good.
And that's Fly Guy this week saying that. So,
I love it.
Hey, Adam, thanks a lot. This was a lot of fun tonight. We really appreciate you coming on with us.
Yeah, appreciate it. You guys have me on whenever you guys need somebody. Definitely let me know.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And, Steve is always really enjoy it. Always fun talking Giants with you. And guys, please, again, thank you for all your support, and please keep it up. And we really appreciate it. And we'll see you soon with episode 21. Have a good weekend, everybody. Take care.